this message came about. I just came across one verse and it just grabbed me, and I couldn't. You could take it at several different angles, and I was trying to choose which direction should I take the message, and then the title message kept changing, shifting, and it was just like I didn't know where to take it, but I started to notice how they all eventually pointed to a certain direction, but to kind of simplify the whole thing, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go with this. But first off, I'm gonna go show you guys the scripture where I was caught. If you turn to Mark chapter 8, verse 31. Now this was probably last month when I came across the scripture, and it's been you could say this is the scripture of the month for me. It's been hanging in my head all the time. So it says, this is Jesus speaking to the disciples, and he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected of the elders and of the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He's telling them what's going to happen, what's the game plan, what's coming up. And he spake that saying openly, and Peter took him and began to rebuke him. But when he had turned about and looked on the disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, Get thee behind me, Satan. Amen. For thou savorest not the things that be of God, but the things that be of men. And this that part that really got me, where he said, For thou savorest not the things that be of God, but the things of men. When I came across this, I was like, wow, because this was a moment where God just cut through and attacked the direct point of issue of what was taking place. And, also noticing that he said, Get thee behind me, Satan. Now I know, this scripture references us that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but at the same time, Peter does have a responsibility in that case as well. It wasn't just saying Satan completely took over and said those words, and that wasn't Peter. It was completely Satan. No, Satan must have influenced him. This was, you could tell, basically saying this was, you can see where Peter's state of mind was at this time when he said that. So I could just imagine how when Jesus was saying those things that was going to happen, and you see how Peter responded, and you can see how the difference it was taking place. It wasn't necessarily they were seeing eye to eye, because obviously Peter didn't understand what was going on. Peter didn't understand this was meant to be and what was really going on behind the scenes, and that's what completely threw everything off. I'll get back to that, but thinking about how we, once we become born again, we like to be effectual saints. You want to be, of good quality. When you mention, I think about when you have a team and you're playing, you want to make sure you're contributing to the team. You want to make sure you're not weighing the team down. I want to be able to, if I'm playing basketball, I need to put some points on the board. I need to block some shots. I need to, create some assists. Make sure I'm effectual, being a part of the team, and bringing that here. Being, you want to be fruitful. You want to be able to produce fruit, be a delight in God's sight. You know what I'm saying? And this message definitely is pointing in that direction of showing us how to be effectual, how to do things that we become of good quality, where we actually produce fruit unto God, where we actually, what you would say, that bring forth more profit rather than just breaking even, if that makes sense. And so going back to the reference of being a team, imagine you and a team. We're playing against a formidable team that's it's gonna give you a challenge. So you guys join up together, you're ready, and you guys starting off going pretty good, but you notice you got one player constantly taking the shots, constantly taking the ball, the teamwork starting to break apart, and you see one person just hogging all the spotlight, and it, when you're seeing that, it's like, wow, why he always got the ball? Why he not passing the ball? You could have the person could have multiple people on them, but he's still hogging the ball. He's still hogging instead of knowing the pressure is coming on him, that means other people are open. That means, okay, you diverted, you got all the defense's attention. Now you can pass the ball to somebody else and they can make a point. But instead, he's fixated on trying to make that point instead of passing the ball. And when you see that kind of thing happen, it's like, what's going on here? Why is this taking place? And you can see in that instance, that player is on a whole different page than the rest of the team. And when that happens, then things don't go well. You know what I'm saying? Things start to fall apart, and you wonder why. So this message, the title message, is called "After You," and this came from when you mentioned chivalry, how when a man treats a woman, when you open the door, you let the woman go first. It's showing, giving the woman honor. You're showing them that you're putting yourself aside and you want to put them first, put them ahead of you. And I'm taking this whole concept is how we should be with God, as far as especially among us, the saints, where instead of we focusing on ourselves, we give honor to God. So we're gonna put ourselves back and say, God, you go first. Putting God first. If you could turn to Matthew chapter 7, starting at verse 21, it says, "Not everyone that says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that does the will of my Father, which is in heaven." See, notice he said, not everybody gonna make it. The people that call him Lord, not all of them gonna make it to the kingdom. Verse 22, "Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils? And in thy name done many wonderful works?" Now he's showing you like, yo, I did this, I did that. Like, they're showing you how this should solidify why I should be in the kingdom, because of my works. Look what I've done, things I've contributed, but this is where it's just amazing. Let me get to it. Verse 23, "And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity." I remember when I first read that, I was surprised, like, wow, this is harsh, because clearly it's showing that this person have done works. They have prophesied in God's name. They have cast out, what they exactly said? They have cast out devils and done many wonderful works. But yet God would still say, "Depart from me, I never knew you." Like, wow. And it just shows, like, dang, so what in this situation could cause that, where you could be in the church doing good works, and at the end God still say, "Depart from me, I never knew you." Now that's what hit me, where I can see that God can see through the filth. He can see through all your clutter. He can see through all your facades, your everything that you're trying to do. Some people put in fronts, and God sees right through it. And going back to how he responded to Peter, instead of going around, of course God is in the position, and we're not. We can't see everything clearly, but God sees. When God sees it, he attacks it directly. And at this point, they can say, "Oh, what about this I did? What about that I did?" For me, if I would have been on the third person watching this conversation, I would have been like, yeah, they did works for you, Lord? They cast out devils? You still not letting them in? Like, I'll be confused. But God sees way more than I can see. And basically, in this situation, you can tell sometimes where it mentioned people have different agendas, where, yeah, they come in here, they're doing works, but for who it is it? What's the purpose? Why? What's the hidden motives of what they're doing, the things they do? And God can see right through it. And sometimes we get fooled. Sometimes, I see someone come to church and they do some wonderful things, like, wow, and I'm just impressed if they're doing, like, wow, this person. is their heart is truly for the Lord. But little did I know, sometimes it's not the case. It's other reasons why they do things the way they do. So, looking back at that situation with Peter, imagine, we want to try to make it more realistic today. As today, like, I won't say more realistic, but more modern, like what we deal with today. So let's kind of change history a little bit. Let's say Jesus hasn't come yet. And he's coming now. He's here now in our time. He's come to Pompano. He's gathering disciples. He's doing wonderful works. We start to follow Jesus here now. Imagine we've been waiting for all these years for the Messiah to come to change the world. We heard in the scriptures how once the Messiah comes, everything changes. So we're waiting for the Messiah, Now he's here. He's come to Pompano. We following him. He's doing all these wonderful works. And all of a sudden, he started telling us, the Pharisees, they're going to catch me. I'm going to be bound in prison. I'm going to be beaten. I'm going to be slain. When you hear that, compared to maybe what I may have had in mind in the situation, if Jesus was here now in Pompano, not knowing the New Testament, everything, I would expect, okay, Jesus here now, we taking over Pompano. He gonna take, made me think about what happened in Seattle, with what do you call it, Chaz, where they took over and they call it their own property. I forget. My mindset would have been like that with Jesus here. I would say, okay, Jesus, Pompano is your starting kingdom. We're taking over Pompano. This is the kingdom of God. Now, we're going to expand. We're going to take over Pompano, and then we're going to go to Deerfield, and our goal, we're going to take Florida. Florida's going to be the kingdom of God. And then we're going to expand to the rest parts of the United States. And then as we go further, we're going to take over the other countries. The kingdom of God is going to be all over the world. And this is the work of the Messiah, and we just getting started. And then that's how they probably thought at that time when Jesus came. But for us, imagine that, and then you hear Jesus come and say, he's going to get killed. Like, no, that's not. And clearly you can see right there, we're on total different levels. Amen. God's saying one thing, and then I'm envisioning, because we got the scriptures of the Messiah in the Old Testament, but it doesn't explain God's full intent, what his purpose is. So our imagination fill in the gaps. And when that happens, slowly, if we're not careful, those imaginations kind of create that separation. And then all of a sudden, we become on totally different levels and different pages. And so now, this is natural. This happens. That's why it's always stressed to stay close to the scriptures as much as possible. Because, once your fantasies and imaginations come in, they kind of get fuzzy. Sure. So that's why, coming from Peter's perspective, I understand how that happened. But at that same time, you can see Peter had a different agenda than what Jesus had. So when listen to Jesus' response, what he said. Okay. Oh, I'm getting lost here. Sorry. Okay. He rebuked Peter, saying, "Get thee behind me, Satan, for thou savourest not the things that be of God, but the things that be of man." So let's take that example of Jesus taking over Pompano. That is a worldly, obviously, that's a worldly, desire. That's on a whole worldly, my whole imagination is carnal, because all I'm thinking about is taking over Pompano, taking over the world. I have made no reference to anything spiritual in that sense. So Jesus attacked that immediately, saying, "Thou savest the things that be of man, not of God." And that, when you hear that, it kind of clears things up. Like, whoa. When you break that down, I'm sure Peter probably didn't really get what was going on at that time. But taking that from where we are now, with all the scriptures putting together, it's like, wow, yeah, that does show. With this mindset, I'm going the wrong direction than what God is intending. And let's go back to the example of being on this team. If we all together, we trying to make championship, it's a problem if we got one player whose main focus is to be the star. He's not really focused too much on winning championship, but it's about him winning championship, not the team. That's a problem. That's a whole different page, because now when we get into the game, when things get difficult, this person is going to take the ball and try to make it all happen on its own, and it's not possible. And suddenly, things start to fall apart in that case. And imagine that plays out in several ways, even at work. You could be at the job, and your goal is to maybe drive sales, or make things happen. But if someone is so strong on trying to shine, or trying to take all the glory and shutting out everybody out, guess what? Then we start having problems, because you're not sharing the work. You taking all the load, everything coming to you, and you take it. You say, "Oh, I got it. I can take care of it. I can take care of it. I can take care of it." But you got people that's free, that can, that can do the job, and it can help everything flow. Things start to be more efficient. Yeah, so they taking all the glory from themselves, and guess what's going on? They're falling behind, because they're taking more work than they can do, and all of a sudden, the whole whatever group, the team, or the whole company start to look bad because of one person taking more work than they can offer, what they can take, and all of a sudden, it just starts to affect the whole team. And this is what happens. And this is one thing you have to be worried about. And imagine us trying to establish this relationship with God. We come here and we come in the faith, and we hear that God can save our souls. We hear that we don't have to spend eternity in hell. We have opportunity to be with Him in the kingdom. And what our first step is okay, I can see what God can do for me. So we're going to keep riding like that. I'm going to keep figuring out what God can do for me. So we take God and all His offerings and see, okay, I'm going to take this and see how all the ways it can make me advance in life. And that's basically, now you're in the point where you're just using God. You're not even thinking about what would make God happy. What does God expect of me? Am I doing the will of Him? No, you just focus on, okay, God, let me get this job. You get the job, God, let them acknowledge me. God, let them, instead of actually seeing where I can be a blessing to others, help other people, represent God in a fashionable way, and make Him happy, instead of just become self-centered, and then you just constantly looking for ways to promote yourself, and then you're trying to use God in a way of fulfilling your own desires, and that is an issue. If we go to John chapter 3, verse 30, I'll give a little summary of what happened before. Well, Jesus and His disciples were in the area baptizing. This is around the same time John the Baptist was out. This is before he was beheaded and killed. And some of the Pharisees, I would say the Pharisees, it was the Jews, and the people around came to Him saying, "Wow, there's another group of people coming, and they're baptizing more than you." And imagine that when you start something, and now there's another group coming, and they start to outdo you. On the worldly level, it's that natural feeling to get jealous or to get competitive. Oh no, I gotta overcome them, And then suddenly it can get to that point where you're going against them. Maybe you're setting things up so they could fall. But in this situation, good that John the Baptist knew. Now these are legit people. They're on the same team as us, and not only that, the Son of God is with them. This is the Messiah is with them. So his response was, He must increase, but I must decrease.
Amen.
He that cometh from above is above all. He that is of the earth is earthly, and speaketh of the earth. But he that cometh from heaven is above all. So he already put in things in right perspective, where when it came to, if God came any kind of way in his life, he's going to step aside and let God work. You know, maybe there's going to come in a time in our life where there's a situation where we're going to have to step aside our dream. Maybe, for example, let me give you an example. One day, this is some years back, I was on the keyboard. It's a new song I was working on. I spent like weeks, because it was a difficult song for me to learn. I forget what song it was, but I practiced and practiced and practiced. It was difficult for me to get it, and I'll finally get it. And then that Sunday came when I was ready to perform it. I was excited, like, oh, people are gonna love this song when we do it. So we came out. Even on that day, I was still practicing more to make sure I iron out all the kinks, make sure the delivery is on fire, everything's on point. And then I was just super excited. And then that day, suddenly, we didn't do worship service. We did a prayer. And that threw me off so much, because I spent so much time trying to get this thing going, work on this song. But then all of a sudden, when I came here, things went on a different level than what I was intending. And in a bit, it was bothering me. Like, man, I wanted to do the song. But we praying. And it was just foolish to me, because, you know, at that moment, everyone was in the spirit, praying, people speaking in tongues. The Spirit of God was flowing in the room. But I was stuck into, I got this song I wanted to do. And in these moments, this is where we got to realize, okay, sometimes you got to step aside and let God's work. If you see God put you something through, we need to let that happen, instead of trying to push what we and our will in the way and think, oh, this need to be done because I feel this is the way it should be done. But if you see God working, let him work. Step aside. Don't always try to jump in the way. Next thing is what it means to sacrifice. Because in this process, you got to be willing to sacrifice. You got to sacrifice yourself sometimes. It's not meaning your whole life, to throw everything in the way. It's sometimes you take a pause, put your stuff aside for a little while, and let God do his work. You know, when God asks us to be saints, to be born again, he's telling us to forsake all we have, right? But he don't really tell you, he's not really telling you to drop everything. He doesn't tell you, okay, quit the job. You know, all your responsibilities at home we got in your life, drop it all and just come to the church and just stay and abide in the church for life, prayer. God is not saying that. He said is, first, come unto me, sacrifice all that you have, and guess what? God give it to you back here. Now, under my umbrella, you were doing these things. Before, this was what you were doing on your own agenda. This was your own goal. Now, instead of that, drop all that and just come and put all that under my umbrella. And now, achieve your goals, achieve your dreams, achieve what you want to do under my umbrella. And that's the way it should be properly. Because when it's in that way, it prevents that point of when you get so consumed in what you're doing, where you start to lose yourself. Sometimes, you probably see it in the world, where people get so caught up on their dreams, where they want to achieve something, they start to devalue everything else around them, because they're so focused, fixated on this one thing. And then when they finally get there, God let them get there. But guess what happened? Once they get there, they realize all the important things that they truly didn't really acknowledge, they dropped it. And it's like, wow, I got all this money, I may have this huge house, I may have all these people, you know, following me, worshiping, but guess what? I have no relationship with nobody.
Sometimes it's just fun.
Yep, and it's just, you just start seeing this huge emptiness inside.
Amen.
So that's one thing, just seeing, it takes to sacrifice. It does. In Mark 8, verse 34, and when he had called the people unto him with his disciples, also he said unto them, whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it. But whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it. For what shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed when he cometh in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. Notice he says, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it. You know, when I speak to people about becoming born again, those who believe, are like, and you try to explain to them the work of God, the gospel. The main thing they would jump to say, I'm having too much fun, man. You know what I mean? I gotta stop doing this, stop doing that. They are so focused on, they're thinking that they're gonna lose out on life, that God is gonna shut them in this cage life where they won't be able to experience anything, and they're gonna be completely tormented because they're gonna be able to see all these things, but they can't enjoy all these things. And that's in that sense they're thinking, by me not getting into Christ, not accepting him, I'm saving my life because I'm able to experience life. But then notice how what Jesus was saying, for whosoever shall, but whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's sake, the same shall save it. So he's basically saying, so if you try to save your life, you're going to lose it. But if you lose your life, that means sacrifice it for God's sake and the gospel's, you'll save your life. That's almost basically back to saying taking all your dreams and everything, put it under his umbrella, where now that it's under his umbrella, he's going to take care of you. He's going to make sure you're guided the right way. He's going to make sure that every path you take is the right path, the path that will be beneficial to you, instead of making you get lost in these wild rabbit holes, rabbit trails, and everything that we tend to go on and then lose ourselves and don't know even how to get back, don't even know where we were trying to go in the first place. Sometimes we're just chasing things and we have no idea where we're going. But I think once you put under God's umbrella, you're under God's shadow, under his wing, you know what I'm saying, things start to become more clear. You start to realize, oh, if I go this way, it's a dead end. If I go this way, it don't really pay off. But if I go this way, I see. Yeah, it's not gonna be easy. Yeah, it doesn't mean I'm gonna be on the top, my name's all over the world, but this is gonna be where I get peace. This is where I'm gonna be effectual in helping other people. I'm gonna be, a monumental, what's the word? A monumental, whatever, but you're gonna be basically a person that's of quality, something that's God would definitely be happy about having you part of his team. Now, the next thing is, just what are you sacrificing? Sometimes, imagine having a huge cut on your arm where it's just deep and you're bleeding, you're getting dizzy, and you just can't stop the blood, and you're just about to pass out, and it's hurting so much where you can't even focus, and you need to go to the hospital. But you're like, no, I can't go to the hospital. I can't go to the hospital. I gotta finish this level in the game. Let me beat this game first. Once I beat this stage, no, let me wait till I finish my ice cream. Once I finish my ice cream, then I'll go to the hospital and take care of the blood. And that's what we are doing sometimes. Sometimes we value something so minimal, so minuscule that this is something that can save your life. You know, you're dying, you know that? And here we're more worried about these smaller things. We think about when you try to, can you measure 70 years to compare it to eternity? It doesn't compare. And sometimes people are so fixated on this little limited space of time, and they're willing to forget about eternity for 5 minutes. I'm gonna pass up on all these wonderful blessings for just one little short-term blessing that I wouldn't even call it a blessing, just a instant gratification thing, and the next thing you know, once it's done, I still want more. And this is what we refuse to sacrifice for something so much greater. God giving you such a great, valuable gift, and then you don't even acknowledge it. That's what happens. And definitely, we don't even see it if we are so fixated on trying to achieve something on our own and not really thinking, stopping, and processing things as we should. You can think about Jacob and Esau. Esau was hunting in the field. He got hungry. And suddenly, he was willing to trade his birthright. Now, see, when you just see the birthright, it's not tangible. It doesn't provide you anything immediately. It's just something like a word just floating in the air right now. So when he got hungry, he's like, I see this food that Jacob's cooking that can stop this hunger I'm feeling right now. And so when Jacob said, give me your birthright, look what he valued more than the other. He valued the birthright far more. No, he valued the food far more than his birthright, because of the birthright didn't have anything immediate, tangible, immediate things for him. He didn't get anything out of it, so he completely passed that up for a plate of food that he's gonna be hungry in a few hours later. And look what happened years down the line. He got upset at Jacob because he traded his birthright, and then he's saying that Jacob stole his birthright when you gave it, you offered it for exchange for your food. And now later on, that you start to see the value when the birthright, when it was just floating in the air in the beginning, you had nothing tangible. Now you start to see the fruition coming to life, but by that time you already gave it up. Amen. And that's what people do, where we suddenly, just because for instant gratification, something instant, we want it now, we pass up something for later on. And when later on start to come, we start to realize it, we get upset, we're gonna start fussing, or we're gonna try to find a way where we feel we've been violated, but you gave it up. So in conclusion, our goal is to try to make sure we're on the same page with God. We will never fully understand God's mission. Obviously, the mind of God is on a higher level than ours. But at the same time, we want to make sure we know as much as we can to be on the page where He wants us to be, where we can understand His will. I remember an agent was saying how she could tell when someone's crying. Sometimes she just catches it. She could tell someone's not feeling well, and she'll start praying for them. I don't get that. Someone could be in a horrible position, and I don't even notice it. But just imagine that gift where you can be helping someone in ways, sometimes, like I know when someone's hurting so much, just the fact that someone notices them and comes to comfort them is a lot, and it's way better than you just sitting there in a public area crying and everybody just walking right past you, not even caring about you. They just don't acknowledge you. And I just imagine how that type of gift works wonders. People won't, things like that, people will never forget for years. People will still remember. I remember I was crying and this stranger came up to me and started praying for me or said something to me and uplift my spirit. And you never know, you probably just planted a seed that maybe in a couple of months or years, it may become, it may give increase, and suddenly they come to knowledge of truth, and the next thing you know, they're born again. Or if they were already born again, you just help them, get them back on track, or get them focused, get them re-encouraged. So it's like the value of that is so great. But imagine you just being totally unaware, not on the same page, where someone's right next to you and going through it. But sometimes when this happens, because you are so caught up on yourself, what you're trying to do, where I can imagine, say if Adrian was just in the room, in tears, upset, and here I come, I'm just focused on this game. Like, I don't even look her way. I haven't even see that she's crying, but I'm just like, oh, let me beat the stage. I'm just sitting there playing the game. Imagine that separation, that divide is just a horrible position to be. And you definitely don't want to be that with God, where God has made some moves going on. Things are happening, and you right there, but you don't even see it. You don't even know what's going on. But the reason that would happen because you trying to be the star player of your own life, which you don't have control of. And if you're so caught up on trying to be number one of everything, you're gonna miss all the stuff that's going on around you. And when the right way to do things is always to stop, consider, okay, God be first. What's God's will in this? What God want me to do? You know what I'm saying? Let me stop. I know I want to do this first. I know I want to go in the room and watch some Netflix. But let's see what would God want me to do right now? What do I see that God want me to do? Sometimes we will know what God wants us to do, but we are so caught up on, that last episode was so good, let me finish it, and then I'm figuring. And then with that mindset, you're gonna miss it. You're gonna miss it. And just think about the trumpet sound. When time comes, when God is coming, imagine how great an event that is, and you're just totally unaware of that happening. What a position to be in that. So I hope this message can help you realize to sometimes get out of yourself so you can see God's work. Be mindful of his ways and his will. That way, when things happen, you're aware. Thank you.